My husband goes on annual vacations with his family. I'm on okay terms with them, but since we've only been married for a short time and I don't see his family much, we still have that barrier that keeps us from being completely comfortable around each other. His family arranged for a vacation last week. I, out of curiosity, asked if I could come. My husband felt hesitant, but I told him it'd be an excellent opportunity to get to know his family better. He agreed to take me, and his family was surprised to see me but still welcomed me. On the third day of the vacation, his dad, mom, brothers, and spouses were all sitting at a table outside talking while I was preparing a fruit salad. As I was making my way back, I overheard my mother-in-law say, "Did she really have nowhere else to spend the weekend?" At first, I had no idea who she was talking about, so I kept on walking. But I stopped once I overheard my husband say, "I know, and I didn't want to bring her with me, but what was I supposed to do? You know how pushy she can get." I instantly figured it was about me. I felt so shaken up that I almost dropped the salad. This whole time I was there, I cleaned, cooked, and looked after the kids. And this is how they think of me? An inconvenience to them? I quietly booked a ticket and went home on the first plane. He called and texted, but I didn't respond to anything other than let him know that I was home. He returned and went off on me, saying what I did was disrespectful and juvenile. I told him I overheard the conversation he had with his mom, but he said that I was wrong for eavesdropping and that his family would warm up to me on their terms, so I should stop pushing to be around them when they don't feel comfortable with it, saying it was my fault for coming along in the first place. He said that going home disappointed him and his family and gave them a bad impression of me. I think I might have messed this up and somewhat ruined it for them. Not the idiot. It's not like you've been dating for 2 weeks. You're married. And as I understand, the husband's brothers brought their spouses. So how else are you going to get to know the family? And to be honest, the fact that your husband didn't defend you and was also talking with them behind your back is a red flag. It's more than a red flag. It's truly a deal breaker. He didn't even tell his family he was bringing her since they were surprised to see her. Who needs enemies with a partner like this? OP shouldn't stay married to someone who doesn't like her and doesn't want to include her as part of his family. I know so many dudes straight up dislike their wives. They want intimacy partners and maids. If their mothers have already failed to raise them as respectful adults, why would anyone else sign up to? I would rather have someone who brings something to the table and not just a booster seat and total dependency for survival. Also, this is why I stay 1000% single. Well, her husband immediately describes her as pushy, as if that's something his entire family would know, even though OP hasn't spent much time with the family, which means her husband has been bad-mouthing her for a while now. Of course the family doesn't like her. Her husband criticizes OP and renders her unlikable, which means the family doesn't want to interact with her and justifies him leaving OP behind. He doesn't want his family to like OP. So he wants you to stop pushing to be around your family, but he still gets angry when you stop pushing and go home. And he's not worried at all about your feelings or your hurt. He's worried about impressions. Do not have children with this man, OP. He will constantly lie to you, demean you, and belittle you behind your back. You now know that no matter how much or what you do for your husband, he will treat you as an inconvenience. How much more of this could you possibly take? I think they're only upset she left because once she was gone, they missed having the vacation nanny around. If she stays, they will bully and mold her into this role to gain their love and acceptance. OP, you need to realize that your husband is the issue. He doesn't even like you, by the sounds of it. Please get some self-respect and leave him. I really need to know why the other spouses were allowed, but OP was not. Did they have to ask to attend too, or were they actually invited? I feel like we're missing some info here. Like, OP is a person of color and they're white? It could also be a wealth scenario, where OP may not come from money, and all the other siblings' spouses do. I was flying out to see some friends a few days ago, and the typical parent and child are separated scenario happened. I sat next to the son, who seemed to be about kindergarten age, while the father sat a few rows behind us. At first they asked me to switch seats, and you know what? I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I've had problems with not getting the seat I paid for before too, so I knew it wasn't necessarily their fault that they were separated. However, I paid extra for a legroom seat, so I wasn't willing to give it up. The father asked around and tried to arrange something with the other passengers. However, no one he asked was willing to go through the hassle of moving, and eventually he was told to sit down. Well, as soon as we started moving, I knew it would be one heck of a plane ride. The son seemed to be nervous, and he started screaming during the takeoff. Not too blood-curdling, just a regular child scream. He wasn't any better during the flight. He was either sobbing, which the other person next to him and I tried to resolve, looking a bit too much at my screen, or eating like a slob. I know he's a child, so I still wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but even children at that age are usually better behaved. The best parts of the flight were whenever he went to sit on his father's lap for a bit, which wasn't much, as the flight attendants didn't like that. After 7 hours of this, the father came to take his son and asked, "Did you make friends with your neighbors?" The boy said yes. The father laughed and said, "Kids, am I right? Were you able to tolerate him?" And this question was a bit too much for a sleep-deprived me, so I calmly told the father what I mentioned earlier. Well, he wasn't happy with those words. He told me that if I knew I'd have trouble sitting next to an unaccompanied kid for so long, I should have just moved. This turned into a big argument, and eventually we both just stormed off. Not a single person I know in real life is on my side. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. You're complaining about a little kid sobbing, watching your screen, and eating. His parents did try to do the correct thing to fix the situation and not put the burden on you. A 7-hour flight alone at that age would be pretty hard for most kids. I'm shocked the airline didn't offer you something to switch. You are such an idiot for complaining about what sounds like typical behavior for a kid in the situation he was placed in, alone with strangers for companions. Agree, you are the idiot. You didn't want to move, yet you complained like you were the victim. Granted, you paid for an upgrade, and I'd be hesitant too, but you made your decision, so deal with it. I'm guessing you don't have children or work with children to know that kids get anxious and act more agitated away from their parents. How did you expect a little child to act? Hold your horses. Dad would have easily found someone if he had agreed to give up his kid's extra legroom seat. He didn't want to give up the higher price seat. He expected others to do that. OP's not the idiot. It actually does make sense, in that if the son switched with one of the dad's neighbors, the neighbor would get a free upgrade, and the dad would lose the money that he paid for his son. The dad was expecting someone from his son's row to switch to his normal seat, therefore getting 2 pricier seats for the cost of one. If you're going to call people names, at least work on your own reading comprehension skills. I, 26 female, have a niece, Laura, pre-tween, through my sister Kim, 33, and another niece, Amy, younger, through my brother Tom, 35. I know my siblings love their kids wholeheartedly, but when it comes to parenting, they each have different styles. This comes from the way that we were all brought up by our parents, who use the "because I'm the parent and you're the child, obey me without question" mindset that we all resented. Kim's the type of mother who can't seem to say and stick to the word no, while Tom will at least explain why. While Amy's a sweet, energetic little girl, she does listen and knows to respect people's rules and boundaries. Laura does not. Laura's entitled. Laura's impatient. Laura's whiny. Laura will go through a massive tantrum if she's denied anything, and will get progressively worse the longer she's denied, because she knows her mom will cave eventually. I haven't watched Laura since she was younger. It was a nightmare. She yelled, screamed, kicked me, drew on the walls, and broke one of my framed pictures because I made her dinner instead of getting fast food. Kim did apologize for Laura's behavior, but shrugged off the idea of giving out a punishment, citing that kids will be kids. Never again would I be responsible for my niece again. On the other hand, Amy may need to be told something more than once, but ultimately is a respectful child. I babysat for Tom multiple times and did fun activities with Amy. The coming August, before the start of school, I was planning on going with some friends to the Mouse Kingdom in Florida. Due to life events, they dropped out, but I still wanted to go, and asked Tom if he and his wife would be down to come with me, and I'd go 50-50 on everything with them. They were delighted, and we all decided to go. Obviously, Kim found out and wanted to come too, but we all knew she couldn't afford it, so I thought everything was settled. Well, Laura found out, and at our family dinner, she was super upset about Amy getting a surprise trip, but not her. She then looked at me and said, "Auntie, you have a nice job and no kids. You can pay for everything." I told her that while I may make more money than her mom, I can't pay for everyone by myself. Laura said, "Yes, you can. You had money to pay for that car." She pointed to my new car in the driveway. "You can pay for Mommy and me to go." I refused again and cued the tantrum. It was awful, and she kept screaming why and saying that if I really loved her, I'd make her happy by paying for the trip over and over. I kept refusing, and she got worse before I finally snapped and yelled back that I didn't love her. She was a mean little girl and I didn't like being around her. That definitely shut her up for a moment before she started to sob and cry. Kim is berating me for being so heartless and that I'm evil for favoring one niece over the other. Am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here, except for the kids. Laura's being taught all of this. She's not doing it out of malice. Your sister's obviously an idiot parent, but you are no better. Instead of using this as an opportunity to tell the kid, calmly and politely, that spending money doesn't equal love and attempting a teachable moment, you chose to yell at an 8-year-old. It is not OP's nor her brother's job to parent their niece. Her sister created a monster and ignored all advice from her siblings. This is 100% on her. Also, children can be idiots. To say otherwise is to say they have zero agency, which is insulting to many kids out there. It may not be Laura's fault that she's an idiot right now, but that doesn't mean she isn't one. It is OP's job to be more mature than an undisciplined pretween. Saying no is fine. Even calling her mean is fine. Telling a child relative that you don't love them was inappropriate. It's the kind of thing I expect a hormonal teen to shout. Telling a kid that you don't love them doesn't teach them a lesson, unless you consider you are fundamentally unlovable a lesson. Children don't deserve to get whatever they want, but they do deserve to be treated with kindness. Even the undisciplined ones. Work on your issues and do better. Disagree. OP's not the idiot. Laura needs to hear it. Possibly not quite so harshly. Perhaps I love you, but I don't like you because everything else got said. She's going to be both unbearable and miserable as she grows up. Honestly, I suspect Aunt OP's money is a common topic in Laura's household. She kept saying, "Yes, you have money, a car, and a job, so you can pay for us too." Yikes. My mom came over recently to meet our infant son. My wife asked my mom to help her out by putting our son's laundry in. We come from very different families, and I know she offended my mom. In my mom's world, you don't ever ask a guest to do something like that. My wife's family is very close, a bit suffocating at times, to be honest, and everyone pitches in. For example, if we stay with my wife's family, we're given chores. If we stay with my mom, we're treated like guests. I could tell from my mom's face she was furious, but she said okay. Her boyfriend went into the laundry room with her and was like, "What the heck? Why would she ask you to do that? Why are you doing it?" My mom said she just doesn't want to fight with me anymore. Her boyfriend was like, "Okay, but to be clear, if my mom came over, would you ever ask her to do work?" My mom said, "No, I'm not trashy." I saw red and immediately stepped into the room. I said, "How dare she call my wife names in our own home?" My mom tossed the things at me and said, "Good, I can wash them, as it is in her house, and she didn't choose to bring our son into the world." I said she crossed the line by calling my wife names in our own home. I told her to get the heck out, and she isn't half the woman my wife is. My mom told me we were both trashy and she was done with us. My grandparents were furious when they heard and chewed me out for being entitled. Not the idiot. Don't visit a home with a newborn for more than 5 minutes if you don't intend to help them out. Family helps. Guests don't necessarily. Tell your mother that if she wants to be a guest, she's welcome only when you invite her, and she's only privy to guest information about your life. I'm baffled by people who show up to houses with babies and expect to be waited on instead of pitching in. When I had my babies, my mom, Sunday school class members, friends, and Bible study leaders all dropped in for weeks to bring food, bathe babies, and let me nap. Some even volunteered to vacuum. Then I did the same for my friends when they had babies. You are the idiot. You know that your mom's and your wife's expectations don't align, so it was your job to smooth things over. This means you tell your wife ahead of time not to ask your mom to help, but instead ask you, and you take over the extra chores. Unfortunately, that also means that you tell your mom things are hard with the new baby and you're not able to host right now. Does she still want to come knowing that she'll need to pitch in with the dishes and the household? Or would she rather wait until you're more settled? You set both women up for failure by letting this play out the way that it did. And even then, instead of de-escalating the situation, you went nuclear. This was stupid and short-sighted, unless your mom is otherwise a bad person. Now you've created a big mess. There are no winners here, only losers, thanks to you. I own an apartment with my ex, and until our divorce is finalized, it's both of ours. I had to leave a lot of stuff in my apartment when I first moved out, and I haven't been back to collect my things because I didn't want to be in the apartment or anywhere near it or him in the beginning. I found out he was going to be abroad, so I told him I would collect some of my things while he was gone, and he said it was fine. I let myself in, and I wasn't expecting anybody to be there, but his girlfriend was. She freaked out when she saw me, started threatening to have me kicked out, and accused me of breaking in. She wouldn't calm down or let me get my things, even after I pointed out that this was my apartment too, even if I no longer lived there. She tried to call my ex, but he never answered her call. And in the end, I had to kick her out because she wouldn't let me get my stuff and was irritating me. My ex called me the day after to ask why I had kicked his girlfriend out and said I wasn't being very nice. We ended up fighting because he was being condescending. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It is your apartment. Your ex didn't bother to mention that another woman would be there, making me wonder if he wanted this altercation. Either the ex wanted the altercation to happen, or he's just that dumb. You are the idiot, OP. Unpopular opinion, I know. The girlfriend is just sitting in an apartment she thinks she's legally inhabiting. The landlord walks in unannounced, refuses to leave, and then has her kicked out. In her shoes, I would freak out and get belligerent too. Agree. I don't think the girlfriend is an idiot either. It sounds like she had no idea the OP was coming over, and may have had no idea the OP could still legally access the place whenever. It would be pretty alarming to have your SO's ex show up when your SO isn't home, insisting they can remove items from the house. You may not even have a good idea of what is your SO's stuff and what's the ex's stuff to know if the ex is stealing right under your nose. Maybe even he didn't know the girlfriend was there. Who knows? Perhaps the girlfriend could have taken OP's belongings too. OP says she still has belongings over there. As a woman, it's not hard to tell if another woman has lived there. Not hard at all. She knew, she just didn't care. Or her boyfriend has been feeding her lies about the kind of person OP is. So, to give some context, I, female 35, have been married to my husband 37 for 6 months. He has 2 children from 2 different uninvolved mothers, and they live with us full time. The kids are pre-tween and a tween. I work long hours at a demanding job, time-wise. My husband thinks that just because I work from home, I can pause whenever, but it's untrue. He'd ask me to do things for the kids or him during work hours, but I told him I'm working and unavailable during those hours, and that the kids are his responsibility until I'm done. Yesterday, he told me he wanted to attend a friend's engagement dinner and asked if I could take some time off work to make his kids dinner. I told him absolutely not and insisted that he cook for them or order takeout. He said he had no time to cook and takeout was off the table since he didn't want them to eat fast food. He later said fine and that he would cook dinner and then go to the party. 2 hours later, the kids came in and said they were hungry. I was puzzled. I asked if their dad had cooked them dinner, and they said he didn't. Moreover, he told them to come and ask me to cook for them at exactly 7 p.m. I was so angry to find myself in this situation. I took a few minutes off the meeting, ordered takeout from the nearby restaurant, fed the kids, then had them watch TV, and then went to sleep. He came home at 11 p.m. and went off on me after he discovered that I didn't cook like he was counting on me to do. Not only that, but he yelled about feeding the kids takeout. I argued back saying I had no choice after he tricked me into cooking for them, knowing that I was busy. So I ordered food and ensured that his kids were fed while I focused on work. He ranted about how I cared more about work than my stepchildren, God forbid, called me selfish, then went upstairs and refused to talk to me. He's still sulking about it today and says I need to get my priorities in order because they're messed up. Info about that friend's engagement. My husband has this friend from college. They're close, and he couldn't miss this event. Moreover, he said that he was upset with me for missing the event and now refusing to cook a healthy homemade meal in order takeout, knowing it's a no-go for him. So am I the idiot for not making some time to cook for the kids? Not the idiot. Well, I think we can figure out why the moms of these children aren't involved. I can tell you from this point, it's going to get a lot worse. Honestly, I would immediately file for divorce before he tries to take all of your assets. He only values you for what you can do for him. I'm sorry, but this isn't a relationship. Agree. His priorities are the kids before a party. Did he marry you to have a mom for the kids? Skirt's responsibility of the kids to you so he could go to a party. I tell him to sulk all you want. You didn't want them to eat fast food, and you didn't prioritize their meals instead of going to a party. Better yet, staying home and taking care of them is the priority. You're not the one who messed up. Don't allow him to manipulate you and have you believe you did wrong. Baby mama left him for a reason. Everyone's the idiot here. Why did you marry this loser? Surely you knew what the situation was going to be. You talk about his kids, but come on. They live with him full time and are preteen. Did you think you could just ignore their existence while moving in and marrying their father? You both need to get on the same page for the children's sake. You can't marry a man with kids with no mom and act completely separate. This seems like a bad match. He wants a mom for the kids. You don't want to be a mom, so everyone loses, especially the kids. But your husband is right. You seem to care more about work than anything else. And what the heck do you do that you're still in active meetings at 7 p.m.? She's at work. Just because she's at home doesn't make her less at work. Bail out now. This man does not respect your needs, feelings, or boundaries. This relationship will consume you to the point where you no longer have a sense of self. Everything will be about his and his kids' needs. This will only get worse. Save yourself and leave. File for divorce and move on to a happier existence. Sorry, hon. My wife and I just got back from our honeymoon, settled in our first ever house, and we decided to invite both of our families to dinner to celebrate. My wife takes a lot of pride in our house and her new wife role, so this was a big deal to her. My mom came with her boyfriend, Ted, and his teenage daughter, Emmy. For some context, I think Ted is an idiot, and the kid isn't great either, but I guess she gets a pass because no one taught her manners. My mom thinks the sun shines out of Ted's butt and treats Emmy like her do-over child. For dinner, we had chicken, potatoes, salad, and squash. It was a roast chicken with no flavoring, as we had sauces. Everyone was free to get their own condiments. During dinner, Emmy began whining and complained we only had the mustard type of honey mustard and not the salad dressing kind, and she only liked the salad dressing. Ted told her to just pick something else, then laughed about how what my mom was doing looked interesting, pouring soy sauce on everything. Then he loudly announced that if you season food while you cook it, you don't have to pour condiments all over it. I looked at my wife and saw her looking like she was about to cry. Mom giggled, so I glared at her. She stopped but didn't say anything. Finally, I announced that it's rude to walk into someone else's house and insult their hosting. He tried to laugh it off and be like, well, we're all family now. I was furious and demanded he apologizes. He said he was sorry, but then muttered how he doesn't like cold condiments on warm food, but this food needs something. I told him to get the heck out. Amy was like, oh good, we can go get other food. My mom said nothing to either of them and just asked if I was serious. I said I was, and if she wants to choose him, that's fine, but they need to get out. My mom snapped at me that I had a wife and a new life, and of course she was going to choose him, and called me delusional. They left, and mother-in-law and her husband scolded me about how rude I was, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Now my mom is angry and says I was just acting like a spoiled brat because I hate Ted, and pointed out that when mother-in-law first started dating her husband, he said some much worse stuff, and he got a second chance. I told my mom I do love her and want her in my life, but Ted is banned, as he was cruel for no reason and hurt my wife. Not the idiot. You were defending your wife against idiots, being crappy to her in your house. It probably wasn't necessary to go nuclear so quickly, but it's completely understandable. Heck, Ted and his obnoxious daughter. Did all people forget that there were polite ways to give people feedback about their cooking? Asking for condiments is fine, but humiliating the chef is not. Nope, he was seeking a pretext to throw Ted out. OP and his wife served unseasoned roast chicken and are offended that Ted made a comment. He even told his daughter to stop whining and find another condiment, but OP immediately went from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat. My mom would disown me if I served her and my in-laws unseasoned food. You are the idiot. Your existing prejudice against Ted makes me think you've been itching to throw him out for some time. That prejudice and your rapid escalation of the situation makes me think that you weren't really defending your wife. Instead, defending your wife was the excuse you used to justify a conflict with Ted that you believe you could win. I, 27, went to a pumpkin patch with my girlfriend, 22, and a bunch of her friends. I was told it was a couples thing, but I was the only guy there. That's fine, I'm okay with her friends. I'm past the whole cutesy date thing, but I like making her happy. But then they all started ignoring me. Every time I tried to join a conversation or spend time with my girlfriend, I got frozen out, like I was intruding. I asked her if she wanted to go do the corn maze with me, and it was like I was some creepy guy at a bar. They all had to come along like I was trying to separate her. I totally was, but I don't think that's a bad thing. They all decided to split up in the maze, and my girlfriend went with them. Screw this noise. I could go catch the Seahawks game if I boogied. So I texted her that she had 5 minutes to respond to me, or I was going back to town to watch the game, and she could get a ride back with her friends. I was literally watching the second quarter before she responded. It took her that long to notice that I was gone. Finally, she said her friend would have to drive really far out of her way to drop her off, and that I should come to get her. I was definitely over the limit, and I told her to get an Uber and I'd pay for it. She said never mind and spent the night at her place instead. I just woke up to about 50 texts from her and her friends, calling me an idiot for leaving without telling anyone. I did tell her, she just chose to ignore me. I'm angry that I wasted all that gas and time, and we never even got to spend time together. I'm upset with her and her BS friends. Am I the idiot? Edit. I enjoy taking her out and having fun. She's just starting her career, and I'm established in mine, so I like taking her out for fun stuff she enjoys. When I said that I'm past the cutesy date thing, I meant that I wouldn't be the one to suggest a date at a pumpkin patch. But she was a theater kid, and I took her to see Hamilton. She loved it. I go out of my way to take her to things she'll enjoy. And when we hang out with my friends, they all include her because she is awesome. My friends' wives and girlfriends all include her and stuff too. This is the first time she's behaved like this. The pumpkin patch had 5 bars of signal, and all of them were on Instagram, constantly posting the entire time they were there. Not the idiot, in my opinion. She kind of tricked you into coming there, and after you went, she iced you out and ignored you, which is not okay. You gave her a heads up before leaving as well. So technically, she wasn't stranded, as she had company. Had you left her alone, this would be a different situation. But because she had company as well, I believe you're not the idiot at all. She literally just used you as a free ride to her friend's get-together. I wouldn't even be surprised if the girls were planning something shady and got upset that you showed up. You're over the cutesy phase. So I assume you guys aren't together for long. If so, dump her. She's just using you until something better shows up. Couples don't act like this. And based on the fact that they're acting like a high school clique, they probably had their phones in their hand the whole time, taking pictures probably. I don't think it's normal that she took 2 hours to notice that you weren't there when it's supposed to be a group outing. Yeah, how do you not notice that someone in your group has been missing for like 2 hours? Also, shame on our friends for treating you like an outsider. My friends and I always make sure to include our friends' significant others in conversations and activities because we all know what it's like to be the odd person out. You are the idiot. Don't date 22-year-olds and expect maturity. LOL. Also, did you not think of calling her phone? I think you purposefully sent a text and used the time of 5 minutes because you knew there was no way she'd answer you, and you could feel justified in leaving her there because, well, she didn't answer in the extremely short, unreasonable time I gave, so I'm in the right. If she's immature, you're immature and the idiot too. My male, wife, female, Sonia, is a stay-at-home mom of our 2 children, a young male and a female. I try to help with the kids when I get home. I know being a stay-at-home mom is tiring, even though she has part-time off from school, but helping with homework, making food, and taking care of kids can be exhausting. So when I get home, I make dinner, wash the dishes, and stay with our children for a while so she can have her moment too. These weeks have been pretty exhausting. It is a very important month professionally. In November will be the delivery of a 9-month project that my team and I are idealizing. Last week were the final touches and review of the entire project. So I went to work at 8 a.m., got home at 5 p.m., took care of my kids until 9 p.m., and was actually working until 3 to 4 a.m. to get 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I have trouble sleeping, so it was a lot if I slept 12 hours in 5 days. I was exhausted. I wasn't even driving because I didn't trust my senses to drive. I couldn't vent to Sonia because she was stressed too. Our children had the flu. I was dragged to the hospital by my coworkers after nearly passing out for only walking. The doctor demanded that I take a week's medical leave because I was already on the verge of burnout. When I got home, I spoke to my wife, who seemed to understand. I asked her to give me a day off from everything, as I would try to get as much sleep as possible that night to come back better. She said fine. I also offered to give her a day off because I knew she was tired too. So I went to sleep at 9 p.m. and woke up to Sonia nudging me to take the kids to school. I walked them to school. I talked about what we talked about yesterday, and she said, yeah, but that's your part of the morning, and I have other morning plans, yoga class, gym, and house cleaning. I asked her 3 times more to do this for me, as I was still exhausted, 6:30 a.m., but she just said, you're still a father, tired or not. It could have been the tired or not bit, but I ended up losing my mind and screaming, I just need a few hours of sleep. Please respect what I asked of you yesterday and let me sleep, man. She was in shock and said, okay then. So she took the kids and I slept until 4 p.m. There were several messages from her saying that I shouldn't have yelled at her for asking me to take responsibility as a parent and that it was toxic behavior of mine. Well, we haven't talked much more than necessary for 2 days. Am I the idiot? Given the context, not the idiot. A doctor ordered you to rest. Your wife agreed to help you. If the roles were reversed and you took time off work to step in for your wife, you would be the idiot for waking her up. She didn't respect your valid medical need to rest. Your doctor ordered a week of medical leave to rest. This right here. Also, it appears that the wife gets a 2-hour break every day for yoga and gym. When does OP get his 2 hours per day break? A good loving wife wouldn't be trying to argue fairness when you're sick from exhaustion. She needs a wake-up call about her entitlement. So let me get this straight. You take the kids to school, and they're in school until, 3? She watches them for 2 hours, then you take over. And otherwise, she does the cooking and the housework. Yeah, cooking and housework are a lot, but come on. That's not a fair division of labor. It sounds like she has unfair expectations of you. You were literally sick, and she wanted to do yoga. Couldn't she change up her routine a bit after you got out of the hospital for exhaustion? To let you sleep? Yeah, you're not the toxic one here. I'm an amateur baker, and I like to make cakes for people for their birthdays. My ex doesn't like sweet stuff, but our 3 kids, toddler, preschooler, and young child, like helping me make cakes for him. So I normally make one for him anyway for their sake. This year, his girlfriend planned a party for him, and she told me that she had already ordered him a cake, so I didn't need to make one. I told her that was fine, but my daughter kept asking me when we would make her dad's cake, and was upset when I said that we wouldn't, because she assumed I didn't like my ex, and that's why I wouldn't make him one. Since the cake has always been more for the kids than for my ex, I decided just to make him a small one, since it's not like he eats cake anyway. And I don't want my kids to think that I dislike their dad. So I told his girlfriend that I would make a small cake, and she told me not to, and that I couldn't bring it to the party. I told her I had to bring it to the party as that's when the kids would give him his gifts. I offered to come early and give it to him before the other guests arrived, and then they could put it away, and nobody else would know about my cake. But she disagreed with me and repeatedly just told me not to bring it. I did take it with me in the end, and now she keeps complaining to mutual friends that I did it on purpose to ruin the party and called me weird for making him a cake after I was told not to. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. That's a weird hill for her to die on, sure, but as the host, she is responsible for the cake. But it also baffles me how you couldn't find a way to tell your daughter that you don't hate her dad just because you didn't bake a cake. You could have dealt with this 1,000 different ways, but you played like you had your hands tied in a situation that would very obviously stir crap. So I suspect that was your intention to begin with. Dude, it's a little hard to explain to a child, oh, we can't do the tradition we always do because your dad's girlfriend already did it, without them getting upset. They're just small kids whose parents went through a divorce. They don't know what's happening. Girlfriends should let them have a little normalcy in their lives, even if it means having 2 cakes. The horror. Agreed, not the idiot. You were clear the cake was from the kids. The girlfriend is asserting her dominance. Any woman who says her boyfriend can't have a cake from his kids needs to think long and hard about being with someone with kids. Freaking out over a small cake from the kids ruining a party is ridiculous. She's very insecure. The wildest part of this is the birthday boy doesn't even like cake, but both his current woman and his ex feel so strongly that he needs cakes. And yeah, I know it's a party with guests and kids who all like cake, but it still strikes me as super weird since he's supposedly the guest of honor and there's like 0 considerations for what he actually would like as a dessert. Poor dude has 2 women who don't care about what he wants. Happy birthday to him. My 29 female, husband 34, has a preteen son, Luca, from a fleeing Shauna. My husband and Shauna are not on good terms. She and my husband were never in a relationship, but agreed to co-parent. However, Shauna got into a relationship with another man who did not want Luca in his home, and she decided to stop picking up Luca when he was a toddler. I was introduced to Luca when he was a toddler, and we got along great. Luca and I share a strong bond, with me taking on a sort of parental role for him, as he started calling me mommy and mom when I got pregnant. Being financially comfortable, my husband and I tend to spoil him a lot, and his clinginess has reached a point where he checks on me in the middle of the night since I'm now pregnant. The love and indulgence extend from my in-laws to my own family. He eagerly looks forward to Fridays at my parents' place for grandma's cooking and treats and gifts from grandpa. About a year ago, Shauna aggressively tried to take custody of Luca. We were advised to give in to her demands, which was a mistake, and she has visitation every other Sunday. Every time he has to go to Shauna, he screams and kicks. He doesn't want to go, and the one time we went with him, he told Shauna that he hated her. Shauna always thought Luca clinging to me was creepy, so she brought in her mystery psychologist, who suggested that my family and I step back, blaming us for babying him and having 0 discipline at home, even though he's totally different with us. My husband got suspicious about his conclusion, and we got our own therapist. We only had a few sessions, but she said our home situation seemed stable and loving. My sister's friend, who also knows Shauna, contacted me. She basically said the same as the psychologist. She went all out on me and said that it was my fault. I just agreed with them. I'm entirely done with this situation. I don't have the energy for this anymore. I'm 38 weeks pregnant. The baby will be here any day. I'm just done. Usually my husband and I do everything together for Luca. Against my husband's wishes, I decided to do what Shauna wanted and completely step back from Luca as a parental figure. Luca's not noticed anything and is completely fine. However, my husband, in-laws, and family are not happy with me. My mom literally comes to my home every day to talk to me about it. I want to focus on having the baby and not constantly being blamed for everything I do for Luca. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. There's no way I would let a deadbeat mother who chose a man and abandoned her child, whom I've been raising since he was a toddler, come back and dictate to me and my husband my relationship with my son. I would not step back, and if anything, I would go mama bear on her and not make him see her if he didn't want to. You put in all the hard work with his father while the egg donor was out living her best life, and now she thinks she can just become his mom again after 6 years away? Put Luca first. Screw everyone else. You either tell them to pound sand and be his mom, like you've been so far, or choose to be a crap human and abandon the poor child as his genetic donor did. Get Luca with a therapist and get documentation that going to his bio-mom's house is detrimental to him. She looks like she's waiting for the first viable opportunity to drop the stepchild and focus on her real kid. I can't think of any other reason to act so cowardly and cruel suddenly. She's 100% using this as an excuse to abandon Luca now that her real child is about to be born. I mean, they could take some of that financial comfort and get an enforceable custody order, but I guess pretending that emotional abuse is just fine is easier. I'd rather die than to do this to my stepdaughter. I disagree. OP's not the idiot. You're assuming malice when exhaustion is just as likely a reason. All while growing another human being beset by the ex and the ex's minions about how it's OP's fault that Luca doesn't love his absent bio mom the way she thinks she should be loved. She doesn't have the energy to fight or deal with that and is hoping by taking a strategy of appeasement, she can end it. I don't think she's looking to dump Luca at this point. She's heavily pregnant and exhausted. My wife and I are in our mid-30s, and we've been together for 8 years, married for 4. We're both from California. My wife's only sibling is her sister, who recently moved back to California from Virginia. My wife's sister and her husband and their 3 kids live about an hour away. It's easier for my wife to visit them than vice versa, because they'd be lugging around 3 kids, while we don't have any kids yet. So my wife typically visits them 1 to 2 times a week for weekday dinner or a shopping trip on the weekend. I join every 3 weeks or so for dinner. I have 0 problems with my sister-in-law and her family. They're good people. And if anything, I'm glad my wife has her best friend so close by. So for context, my entire life, I've always had really bad colds. My body just shuts down for 4 to 5 days. My wife and the closest people in my life, siblings, parents, and some lifelong friends, have known about this. The incident is this. Yesterday, my wife and I went to my sister-in-law's house for dinner. When we got there, all 3 kids had colds, coughing, runny noses, sore throats, fatigue, all of that. I immediately panicked internally and thought, darn it, here we go, and thought I'd try my best to stay away from the kids. Then I hear my wife say something like, "Aw, honey, I know you're sick. Your mama's been telling me about it all week," to her niece. That really made me angry. My wife knew the kids were sick and knew how horrible it is for me when I'm sick, but she didn't bother to tell me. I pulled her to the side for a second, and she basically said, "Listen, just don't go near the kids. I didn't tell you because I knew you wouldn't come, and it'd kill the vibe. Relax. I'm sure they're not contagious. Now enjoy the night," and walked away. It's not even the fact that the kids are sick, but the fact that 1, she purposely didn't tell me, and 2, she was shutting me down. So I got the keys and left. I know my sister-in-law and her husband well enough to know they'd drop my wife back at home, but I was just seeing red and was way too angry to have stayed. I woke up this morning and my wife is freaking angry. My sister-in-law's husband's even more annoyed than my sister-in-law. He's saying I'm a pathetic person to leave my wife and take the car. Not the idiot. They could have rescheduled the dinner. Why they decided your health wasn't important is beyond me. Zero empathy. You need to have a serious talk with your wife. What she did was unforgivable. She knows how sick you get. She knew the children were all sick, and she still decided for her selfish reasons to expose you to their germs. Not what you do to someone you love. And if I were you, I'd be furious too. His leaving was the serious talk that they needed to have. The wife and his family have spoken several times about his health issues, and that's why she kept quiet. He reacted exactly the way I would have. Next time their kids and family come over, wait until you've hugged and kissed everyone and let them know you've had a horrible stomach bug for the last 24 hours. I'm vindictive. Who invites people over when their kids are all sick? And your wife saying, I'm sure they're not contagious? Like, how does she think they all got sick in the first place? That's the unforgivable part. She, knowing full well the kids were sick, did not feel any guilt for showing up to a dinner that could have been postponed or canceled and could have gotten you sick. And then to put the cherry on top of terrible, she didn't want you to leave. Like she wanted you to get sick. I mean, and sickness and in health doesn't include getting your spouse sick by being willfully negligent. About 2 months ago, my wife, 38, and I, male 41, learned that my stepdaughter, teen, was bullying a girl in school over being poor, getting free lunch at school, and not being able to afford necessities, such as her own car and stuff. Our daughter was kind of spoiled. We provided her with everything she needed, an allowance and a part-time job at my company, a small family service business. We've been considered middle class, doing things others weren't as privileged to do, such as buying our daughter a car on her recent birthday. I come from a family of immigrants and was considered in poverty growing up. After learning about the bullying, I was furious, as we didn't think we raised her to behave that way. She was in honors and top ranking in her class. I tried to talk to our daughter about why she would do that, and I was disturbed to learn it was because she viewed that girl as trailer trash, which irritated me. The girl, as I understand it, is very smart and works hard. She bought her own beater car and works 2 jobs. She considered the money our family had as our family's money, so I put her in her place and I told her that it wasn't her money, but her mom's and my money. I decided from that point on, I would no longer spoil my daughter. We ended up taking away her latest iPhone and replacing it with my old iPhone 8 by switching phones with me with a talk and text plan. We took away her family credit card and sold her car, along with her MacBook and other luxuries. I also told her to find a job without nepotism and work a minimum wage job like everyone else her age does, because I'm done giving her handouts if she's going to act entitled. Fast forward 2 months later, she's working at a fast food restaurant, with us driving her around. She doesn't talk to me unless she needs something like a ride, but she's very upset with me. My wife feels like I'm taking this too far because it affects her social status, grades, and school. I, however, feel like she needs to be humbled because I can't have a daughter who'll disrespect people just because of the amount of money they have. I also feel that her behaving this way will affect her younger sister, tween, and how she perceives the world. Am I the idiot for punishing my teen stepdaughter after we found out she was bullying a kid for being poor? Edit. I would also like to add we took away her MacBook, but she still has access to the family computer in the house. She still has Wi-Fi access at the house. However, we did throttle her speed because high-speed internet is a privilege. She has fast enough internet to do homework and watch videos that aren't in HD, like Netflix and stuff. She also isn't failing. She went from a straight A student to mostly B's and 2 A's, which I still find great. Definitely not the idiot, And I'm proud of you for standing up to your stepdaughter and giving her a taste of what life is really like. You may just have saved her from that path to the bad place that she was on. She acts very privileged and entitled from what you described. It's good for her to see how the other half lives. It is very eye-opening. I would continue this path for at least a year so she doesn't slide back. Hopefully you'll have a much more respectful and kind stepdaughter. It really is too bad other parents don't do more stuff like this to their children instead of spoiling them rotten and then wondering why they're in jail. If her social status is based on belittling those less fortunate, then screw her social status. You should also make her volunteer at a homeless shelter or serve meals to the poor. Your daughter needs to learn empathy and humility. As for your wife, she needs to get a clue. Taking away and selling her luxury items and making her work a typical teenage job is not affecting her grades. Her grades come from the effort she puts in. By dropping her grades, she figured she could get the punishments to end. I'm sorry she was spoiled and entitled in the first place, but I'm glad you took a real issue with it. In the end, I hope these life lessons shape who she becomes. Buckle up for at least a rocky year. I 100% agree. However, I've held the belief that if someone is bullying, it could be because they're being bullied or there's some other negative influence in their life. Most happy and mentally healthy kids and teens won't participate in such activities unless other influences drive the behavior. Is there anything you can think of that may cause this behavior? I do see there may be a need for some counseling. Not sure where to begin with this. I guess last night, one of the more popular frats on campus was having a Christmas on the beach themed party. So all around the bar area were girls dressed in bikinis with vague Christmas themes. My roommate was dating this total nut job named Sydney, and as far as I knew, they were broken up. Well, at about 2 a.m., he bombs through the door with Sydney and her friend in tow, both dressed like elves, with way too much skin showing. My roommate and Sydney went to his room and still haven't come out yet. I was playing Fortnite, and the other girl said she was Sydney's friend and the designated driver and was stuck. She asked if I wouldn't mind if she charged her phone and hung out until she knew Sydney was okay. I said fine. Maybe 15 minutes later, she said something like, "I know this is weird for both of us, but I'm not here by choice. I just don't want to bail on my friend, but sitting here with a guy I don't really know in a bikini is weird and I'm cold. Do you have some sweats I can borrow? I see you every Monday and Wednesday, and I promise I'll give them back." I told her no, I wasn't comfortable with that. She asked if I at least had a blanket. I found one in my roommate's spare room, but it was really small and I said I was sorry. It was the best I could do. She fell asleep on the couch and I went to bed. My older sister came to pick me up for breakfast, and she saw the girl sleeping on the couch and asked why a half-naked girl was sleeping under a baby blanket. In the car, I told her what happened, and she basically got so mad at me, saying I had about 30 opportunities to be a really decent guy, and I blew it. She said it sounded like the girl was trying to do the right thing by your friend, and I could have let her use sweats. I could have let her sleep in my bed while I took the couch. I could have said that she should go home and I'd drive Sydney home. But basically, I was an idiot because I left an apparently nice girl in a vulnerable position, and I didn't even care. She said that I need to grow up to have friends and have some empathy if I ever want girls to like me. She had no idea if that girl was into me or not, but I missed a great practice round of treating someone in a nice way that they may reciprocate. When we got back to my house, my roommate, Sydney, and the girl were gone. There was a sticky note on my door that said, "Thanks for letting me stay here. Sorry it was weird. Please say hello sometimes. Nat." My sister said this was even more proof that I acted like an antisocial weirdo, and she was just being nice, and the reason I've never had a girlfriend is the way I acted last night. Sister says I need to go up to her on Monday, apologize, offer to buy her lunch, and try to have a friendly conversation with her. I wanted to see people's opinions on that too. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot, and judgmental to boot. I love how you mentioned it was a beach party, so all the girls were in bikinis, but Sydney and her designated driver friend were the only ones you shamed and said they had way too much skin showing. Dude, everyone was in bikinis. Secondly, your sister was right. You were neither empathetic nor a gentleman. Third, she wasn't asking for a name brand ski jacket. She was asking for sweats. Exactly. Were you obligated to help her? No. Technically, you're not obligated to help anyone. But this line of thinking is very selfish, which makes you an idiot. It would have been very easy to help and you didn't. Hopefully you can learn from this in the future. And she literally sounds so nice. That makes it even worse. She was staying at her friend's ex-boyfriend's place just to make sure her intoxicated friend was safe. The girl deserves a medal for that level of dedication. I'd be happy to be friends with Nat. OP, not so much. Dude. Literally, everyone's telling you, you're the idiot. Any human with a shred of decency, humanity, and common sense is saying you're the idiot. You need to be better as a person. There's a final verdict that you were the idiot, and hopefully when you need help, someone who can offer you a small kindness refuses you, so you know exactly how small and alone that poor woman felt. Update. I said hello to Natalie this morning. She was very nice and accepted my apology. She also said she was sorry for invading my space on Friday. She talks a lot, which I guess I would usually find pretty annoying, but I didn't seem to mind with her. It turns out we both have a break between classes, so we just stood there talking for about 20 minutes. Well, she talked, and I just nodded my head. When it was time to leave, she said it was a really nice conversation, which made zero sense because I didn't say much. But I went against my instinct to correct her. She said she'd like to do it again sometime, and I said I would too.